So this starts to get into the coordinate system structure of all that. So being that we're dealing with polyphase power, and it's an invention of Tesla, or more appropriately a discovery of Tesla, to use his own words, we kind of got to start off with his vision and then turn this into a coordinate system that we can use to analyze the three-phase power system. So let me move forward here. So these are the subjects. So this is going to be Tesla on the dimension of time. Because we're dealing with alternating current, we're dealing with a dimension of time, and that dimension can be expressed in various coordinate systems. So Tesla got his vision during a nervous breakdown in the park somewhere with his friend, and then reading the poetry of Goethe and being in this state is the entirety of the polyphase power system presented itself to Tesla in one blinding flash. So he was reciting poetry from this particular writing by Wolfgang Goethe, who was a major influence on Tesla and actually a very important player in both presentations that I'm giving in his concept of counter space. So let's look at the poem. So the sun sets and it's moving away into another time dimension, so to speak. And the desire is to follow it and remain under it, which would put you in a permanent state of noon. It would always be noon, and you would be following the sun and staying at noon, and that's how polyphase works. So a lot of times rather than winding the core with strip, they use stacked laminations. So this shows how that stacking's done. And then you always have to make sure that there's no continuous metallic path through the core that goes in the same direction as the conductors in the coil. Otherwise you will get currents in the core which short circuit the transformer and it will burn up. And this is one of the reasons why the cores are always wound or laminated, is while you want a path for magnetic current, you do not want a path for electric current. And the other problem is that you encounter is the skin effect, which is kind of another way of saying the two types of current interfere with each other. So magnetism, that's in motion, takes time to get in to iron. And that time is related to the square root of the frequency. So the result is the higher you go in frequency, the less the magnetism wants to get in the core, and you have to start making the laminations thinner and thinner until finally you reach a frequency where it's no longer physically practical to make laminations that thin, and that's usually what encourages the use of ferrite or iron powder or what have you at that point, because lamination's not possible. So let's take a hypothetical shell type transformer. We're looking at it from the top. The windings are sticking out of the end, and then what we're going to do is take a hacksaw and we're going to cut this thing into a little slice, or an element as it's called, which is symbolized by the lowercase lambda at the top. We're going to cut that off and see what it looks like. So this is what we have. Okay, so now we pull one of the transformers at the substation, had to be removed, so now the system is still operating at the load end without any real indication that anything's wrong, but that's going to change conditions for transformers at the sending end. So the line voltage is still 7,200. The line current is still 24 amps, but now the phase currents are switched around. We have two phase currents that are 24 amps and one phase current at 0 because we got a dead phase. So now the other two transformers are no longer delivering 14 amps. They have to deliver the full 24 amps, and that causes the transformers to run hotter. So basically, that's why you don't get 2/3 of the power capability, but you get 1 over the square root of 3 of the power capability. Star coordinate system, this is our positive and negative sequences. And then if we try to couple that with the mesh coordinate system, then we get another interesting vector, tensor, versor type relationship, which is good for meditational purposes, but is not particularly of a lot of utility value. Okay. Now we're going to run all the sequences through. This is where it gets difficult, but this is part of the polyphase power engineering. Is if you have a positive sequence, a negative sequence, and a zero sequence in a system, what is that going to look like on the other side of a delta to y or y to delta transformation? Because you're not going to have the same proportionality anymore between the stars and the delta's coordinates, sequences. One thing that always struck me about the music of Bach was how it was a perfect analog of three-phase power. In fact, one of my friends used to tell me, I know what's happening in your mind when you're listening to that loud Bach organ music is you're seeing electricity dancing around everywhere. There's a certain piece of music that Bach wrote, rather lengthy piece of music called The Art of Fugue. It was more of a theoretical piece than a piece produced for entertainment. In fact, actually, the idea of using music for entertainment was rather limited back in the 18th century and before, so it had more of a functional purpose to energize the church. So this was a theoretical piece, but has produced some of the most fantastic pieces of polyphase music ever written. And one piece in particular, Contrapunctus 10, is where I first experienced, before ever hearing about it, the process of going from space to counter space.
I was hoping that you could clear up maybe something that I might have a misconception of. When I try and study independently after hearing what you have to say or reading your books, they bring in a whole lot of other ideas that you don't mention, like the change of direction of the current and alternating current. And I don't ever see that when I'm like in the Navy Bureau of Electronics books or in your books. So I didn't understand if that was just a theory.
No, you say change of direction, kind of give me more of an idea what it is you're trying to get at.
Well, in the illustrations, when they try and give you a visualization of it, they simply show one conductor and then the current going this way and then this way on the same conductor.
Well, here's the problem, is the dimension of time is left out because you have a static image in space.
Okay.
And it's not possible to really provide a representation in form of directional arrows because everything is in constant motion.
Gotcha. It's a little, that part's a little confusing.
Oh,